My name's Emily Carter, I'm 28 years old, and I was born and raised in a small town just outside of Columbus, Ohio. I've never been the kind of girl who thought my life would be extraordinary, but I also never imagined it would turn into the kind of story people whisper about at family gatherings. I grew up in a house where the walls seemed to hum with tension. My mom, Linda, had a voice that could make the whole neighborhood go quiet when she was mad, and my dad had left when I was 12, leaving her to raise me and my two younger siblings, Sarah and Matthew. That morning in April, the air was crisp and sunny, but it didn't match the knot in my stomach. I'd just finished my shift at the local diner and pulled into our driveway, already rehearsing the "don't worry, I'm fine" lines I used when Mom decided to pick a fight. Instead of the usual, though, I saw something that made my heart drop: all my belongings stuffed into black garbage bags, piled right by the front gate like trash waiting for pickup. My clothes, my books, even the little ceramic vase I'd made in high school art class, it was all there. Mom stood in the driveway with Sarah and Matthew behind her, both of them avoiding eye contact. Her arms were crossed, her expression hard, but her voice was calm, too calm. "You're 28, get out now," she said, as if she were reading a grocery list. I froze, waiting for some kind of explanation. Instead, she just stared at me, her face unreadable. I wanted to scream, cry, ask her why, but I didn't. Instead, I smiled, walked past the bags, and got into my old Honda Civic. The engine sputtered to life, and I drove away without looking back. I had no idea then that it would be 6 whole months before I'd hear from her again, and when I finally did, she sent 30 messages in a row: "Where are you?" The first few miles after leaving the house felt like driving in a fog. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than they needed to, and my jaw ached from clenching it. I wasn't angry yet, just numb. I didn't have a plan. My whole life had been centered around that house. Even though I was an adult, I'd stayed there to help with bills, watch the kids, and make sure dinner was on the table when Mom worked late. Rent in our area wasn't cheap, and Mom always told me, "Stay here until you're ready to stand on your own feet." Apparently, she'd decided I was ready without telling me. I pulled into the parking lot of the Kroger on Main Street and just sat there. I didn't want to call any friends yet, I didn't want to explain. I scrolled aimlessly through my phone until I landed on my bank app $684. That was all I had to my name. My paycheck had gone to groceries and helping Sarah with her college textbooks. The truth is, things had been tense for months. Mom had been seeing a new guy, Rick, and I think he didn't like me being around. He'd make little comments about how grown women shouldn't be living with Mommy, and Mom would laugh in a way that wasn't really a laugh, it was more like she was agreeing with him without saying it. I'd tried to brush it off, but deep down, I knew it was building to something. After sitting in my car for what felt like hours, I texted my friend Jessica, "You home?" She replied almost instantly, "Yeah, what's up?" I didn't tell her the full story, just that I needed a place to crash for a night. She told me to come over, and I drove there, my garbage bags of belongings crammed into the back seat. As I pulled up to her apartment, I remember thinking, this is temporary. I'll figure it out in a week. I had no idea that temporary was about to turn into a completely different life. Jessica's apartment was on the second floor of an old brick building downtown, the kind with creaky wooden stairs and a front door that needed an extra shove to close all the way. When she opened the door, she didn't ask many questions, just gave me a long hug and told me to put my stuff in the corner of her living room. She had a tiny place, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen barely big enough for 2 people. But it felt warmer than my mom's house had in months. The first night, we sat on her couch eating microwave pizza and watching reruns of Friends. I tried to laugh at the jokes, but my mind kept wandering back to the garbage bags at the gate, my siblings' downcast eyes, and Mom's voice telling me to leave. Every so often, I'd feel my phone buzz in my pocket, only to realize it was just my imagination. No texts. No calls. The next morning, Jessica made coffee and slid a muffin toward me. "So," she said gently, "you staying here a while?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I just need a week. Maybe 2. I'll figure it out." That figuring out started sooner than I thought. By day 3, Jessica mentioned her neighbor was looking for a roommate. The rent was cheap because the place was a little rundown, but it was still more than I could cover with my waitress job. I considered getting a second job, but with no savings, no safety net, and my pride still stinging from how I left home, I hesitated. I spent the rest of that week bouncing between Indeed job postings and Craigslist apartment listings. Every time I saw first month plus deposit required, I felt that $684 in my bank account shrink. Jessica tried to keep my spirits up. "This is just a restart," she'd say. "You're gonna look back on this and be glad it happened." I wanted to believe her, but deep down, I was terrified. Still, one thing was clear: I couldn't live on someone's couch forever. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I finally caught a break. I'd been scrolling through Facebook Marketplace for the 100th time when I saw a post. "Room for rent, $375 per month, utilities included. Must be okay with cats." I clicked it immediately. The pictures weren't much: a small, slightly cluttered bedroom with beige carpet and a mismatched dresser, but the price was less than anything I'd seen in months. I messaged the poster, a woman named Carla, and she replied within an hour, telling me I could come see it that evening. Jessica offered to drive me, but I wanted to go alone. Something about this felt like a test, a step I needed to take by myself. Carla lived in a 2-story duplex on the east side of town, the kind of place where the paint was peeling but the neighbors all waved when you passed. She greeted me at the door in sweatpants and a messy bun, holding a calico cat that immediately squirmed to get down. We talked in her kitchen over mugs of tea. She was in her mid-30s, worked as a night nurse, and needed a roommate to help with rent since her last one had moved out suddenly. "It's not fancy," she said, "but it's safe, and I keep to myself." The bedroom was small, but it had a window that looked out onto a row of maple trees, and for some reason, that view made me feel calmer than I'd felt in weeks. I told her I'd take it. 2 days later, I moved in with my garbage bags and a few boxes Jessica had scavenged from behind the liquor store. There was no real furniture except a mattress Carla's cousin had left behind, but it was mine. My own space. That first night, lying on that mattress with the sound of the cat's paws padding in the hallway, I realized something: I wasn't going back. Not to Mom's, not to that version of my life. Whatever came next, I'd have to build it on my own. The first week in Carla's duplex felt like stepping into a cold lake. You know it's going to be uncomfortable at first, but you do it anyway because you need to. I was still working at the diner, but my shifts barely covered rent, groceries, and gas. If I wanted to actually breathe, I needed more income. I started by picking up extra shifts. The diner's manager, Mark, didn't ask questions when I offered to cover late nights and early mornings. Tips weren't great, but every extra $20 bill in my apron felt like another brick in the wall between me and the life I'd left behind. Carla and I didn't see each other much because of her night shifts, but when we did, she was easy to be around. She never pried about my past, which was a relief, but she had this quiet way of offering stability. Like one Thursday night when she came home to find me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at my checkbook like it was written in a foreign language. She just slid a plate of cookies toward me and said, "Budgeting's easier if you're sugared up." I learned quickly that living on your own wasn't just about paying rent. It was about buying your own toilet paper, remembering to take the trash out before it smelled, figuring out which grocery store had the cheapest eggs. I'd never realized how much I'd relied on Mom to just handle things. But independence also came with small victories. The first time I cooked dinner in my kitchen, just spaghetti and garlic bread, it felt like a celebration. When I bought my own set of mismatched mugs at Goodwill, it felt like staking a claim on my new life. Still, late at night, lying in bed, I couldn't help but replay that last day at home. Not just Mom's words, but Sarah and Matthew's silence. I wondered if they missed me. I wondered if they blamed me. I didn't know it yet, but that question, about my siblings, was going to come back around in a way I wasn't ready for. It was late August when I heard from Sarah for the first time since that morning in April. I was halfway through my lunch break at the diner, sitting in my car with the AC blasting, when my phone lit up with her name. I just stared at it for a second. My instinct was to answer immediately, but a lump rose in my throat. I didn't want to cry in the middle of a parking lot. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally worked up the nerve to listen, her voice was shaky. "Hey, Em. I miss you. Things are different here. Call me when you can." It was barely 10 seconds long, but it hit me harder than I expected. I called her back that night after my shift, pacing my tiny bedroom while the cat wound around my ankles. She answered on the first ring. "Em," she whispered. "Yeah. I'm here." She told me she'd been thinking about me for months but didn't want to get in trouble with Mom. Apparently, things at home had been tense since I left. Rick was around more, and Mom had been leaning on Sarah to help with bills and watch Matthew. She said Matthew had been asking about me, too, but Mom shut down any talk about me coming over. Hearing all of this stirred up something complicated, part guilt, part relief. I wanted to go see them, but I knew it would mean walking straight into whatever storm Mom was brewing. Before we hung up, Sarah whispered, "Don't tell Mom I called. She'll lose it." I promised, even though I hated the secrecy. After we said goodbye, I sat in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about how my little sister had to hide a phone call to me like it was some kind of crime. I had no idea that, just a few weeks later, Sarah's quiet call would set off a chain of events that would drag me right back into Mom's orbit. It happened on a Sunday afternoon, about 3 weeks after Sarah's first call. I was folding laundry in the living room when my phone buzzed. It was Sarah again, but this time her voice wasn't quiet, it was frantic. "She knows," she blurted. "What?" "Who knows?" I asked, my stomach already tightening. "Mom. She found out I called you. I don't even know how, maybe she looked through the phone bill, maybe she heard me talking about you with Matt. But she's mad, Em. Really mad." In the background, I could hear Mom's voice, sharp and raised. I could make out words like loyalty and disrespect. Sarah whispered into the phone, "She said you abandoned us. That you don't get to just walk away and then try to sneak back in." That last part hit me like a punch. I hadn't walked away from my family. I'd been thrown out. But in Mom's version of events, she was the one who had been wronged, and I was the selfish one. "Sarah, just hang up and let her cool down," I told her, trying to keep my voice calm. "We'll figure this out later." But Mom must have taken the phone, because suddenly her voice was in my ear. "Emily, you have some nerve. You think you can play the victim and turn my kids against me? I felt heat rush to my face. Mom, I didn't. Save it, she snapped. If you really cared about this family, you wouldn't have left. Don't call here again. And then the line went dead. I stood there with the phone in my hand, my laundry forgotten, my chest tight. It wasn't just the words, it was the finality in her tone. Carla walked in from the kitchen and froze when she saw my face. You okay? She asked gently. No, I said, and for the first time in months, I let myself cry. The days after that call felt heavy, like I was walking around with wet clothes clinging to my skin. I'd been holding on to this tiny hope that maybe, eventually, Mom would calm down, and we could talk things through. That hope was gone. Carla noticed the change. She didn't press me for details, but she started leaving little things on the counter for me, extra muffins from the bakery near the hospital, a sticky note that said you're doing better than you think. I didn't realize how much those gestures mattered until I caught myself smiling at one of them in the middle of a long shift. At work, I buried myself in the routine. Coffee refills, balancing plates on my arm, smiling at customers who didn't know I was falling apart inside. The rhythm kept me from overthinking. I picked up extra weekend shifts, telling myself it was for the money, but really, I just didn't want to sit in my room alone at night wondering if Sarah was okay. Jessica stayed in touch, too. She'd send me random just checking in texts, and one night she invited me out for drinks with some of her friends. At first, I almost said no, I didn't feel like pretending to be fine, but then I thought about how small my world had become. Work, home, sleep. Repeat. That night out didn't fix anything, but it reminded me what it felt like to laugh without forcing it. It reminded me there was life outside of my mom's shadow. By early October, I'd saved enough to cover 2 months' rent in advance. That gave me a little breathing room, and for the first time since leaving home, I started thinking about what I wanted long-term, not just what I needed to survive. Still, there was this constant background noise in my mind, the sound of Sarah's voice when she said, "Things are different here." I knew different didn't mean better. And no matter how much I tried to move forward, part of me couldn't stop looking over my shoulder. It was the week before Thanksgiving when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I wouldn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Emily? It was Matthew. His voice had gotten deeper since I last heard it, but there was a hesitation there, like he wasn't sure if he should be calling me. Matt? Hey, what's going on? I asked, already bracing myself. I'm not supposed to call, he said quickly. Mom's at the store, so I only have a few minutes. My chest tightened. Is everything okay? He was quiet for a second. No. Things are worse. Rick moved in. He yells a lot, mostly at Sarah. She tries to stand up for me, but it makes Mom mad. I miss you. That last part broke me. Matthew had always been the quiet one, the one who hung back during arguments and tried to keep the peace. For him to call me meant things had to be really bad. I miss you too, Matt. I'm here, okay? I'm not going anywhere, I said, even though I had no idea what here meant in this new reality. Before I could say more, he whispered, "She's back." I gotta go, and the line went dead. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time after that, phone in my lap, staring at the wall. It wasn't just about missing them anymore. It was about knowing they were stuck in the same cycle I'd barely escaped from. Later that night, I texted Sarah from a number I'd borrowed from Jessica, hoping Mom wouldn't recognize it. I told her Matthew had called and that I was worried. She replied almost instantly, "We need to talk. In person." It was the first time she'd suggested meeting since I left. We decided to meet the Saturday after Thanksgiving, at a little coffee shop 2 towns over where we wouldn't run into anyone who might report back to Mom. I got there 20 minutes early, nursing a cappuccino and watching the door like a hawk. When Sarah walked in, it took me a second to recognize her. She looked older, not in a physical way, but in the way she carried herself. Her shoulders were tense, her eyes tired. She spotted me and smiled, but it didn't quite reach her face. We hugged, and for a moment, I just held on. I didn't realize how much I'd missed the physical closeness until then. Once we sat down, she didn't waste time. "Things at home are bad, Em. Mom's always on edge, and Rick," she stopped, glancing around the cafe. "He's not a good guy. He's not hurting us, but he's not safe either." If that makes sense. It did. I'd seen enough of Rick to know exactly what she meant. "I can't take Matt with me," she said quietly. "Not yet. But I've been saving up. I'm thinking about moving out after I graduate next spring. I don't want to leave him there alone." My gut twisted. "I don't want either of you there. But you have to be careful. Mom's not going to take this well if she finds out." She nodded, her eyes welling up. "I know. That's why I wanted to see you now. I needed to tell you face to face, so if something happens, you know what's going on." We talked for almost 2 hours, swapping updates, laughing in bits and pieces, but always circling back to the same reality: she and Matthew were stuck, and I couldn't pull them out. Not yet. When we said goodbye, she squeezed my hand. "I'll keep you posted. Just stay reachable, okay?" I promised. And as I drove away, I knew this wasn't going to be the last time I'd be dragged back into my family's chaos. It was just the beginning. It was mid-January, a gray, bitterly cold day, when my phone lit up with a string of notifications. At first, I thought it was some group chat blowing up, but when I looked closer, my stomach dropped. They were all from Mom. 30 messages in a row. The first one said simply, "Where are you?" Then, "Call me." Then, "This is serious, Emily." The tone jumped around, some messages short and sharp, others longer, almost pleading. "We need to talk about your sister. It's about Matthew. Please, Emily. I'm worried." I hadn't heard from her in 9 months, not since she hung up on me that day she found out about Sarah's call. Seeing her name on my screen felt surreal, like hearing a voice from a dream. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part, the part that still felt that reflexive pull toward her, wanted to call immediately. But my hands shook as I scrolled through the texts. The last one read, "You're my daughter. I need you." I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in my hand, trying to read between the lines. Was this genuine concern, or just another manipulation? With Mom, it was always hard to tell. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I texted Sarah from the burner number I'd been using to reach her. "Has Mom said anything to you?" Her response came quick, "No. But something's up. She's been on edge all week. Just be careful if you go over there." That warning stuck in my mind. I didn't know if I was walking into a real emergency or just another trap, but either way, I had the sinking feeling my life was about to get tangled with hers again, whether I was ready or not. I didn't answer her right away. I told myself I needed time to think, but in reality, I was stalling because I was scared. The last time I saw her, my life had been dumped into garbage bags and pushed out the door. But the messages kept coming over the next 2 days. They got more desperate, more erratic. Some were laced with guilt. I can't believe you're ignoring me when your family needs you, while others were softer. I just want to see your face. On the 3rd day, I finally called her. She answered on the first ring. Emily? She said, her voice tight but strangely relieved. Thank God. Can you come over? Tonight? What's going on? I asked, keeping my tone flat. It's not something I want to talk about on the phone. Just, come. Please. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I told Carla where I was going and that I'd text her when I left. She gave me a long look before saying, don't let her pull you back in. Driving to that house felt like rewinding my life. The same streets, the same mailbox, even the same wind chime clinking by the porch. But when I pulled up, the air felt heavier somehow. Mom opened the door before I could knock. She looked smaller. Not physically, but in her presence. Her hair was messy, and she wore a faded sweatshirt I'd never seen before. Thanks for coming, she said quietly, stepping aside to let me in. The living room was dim, cluttered. I could hear the hum of the TV from the back room. It's about Matthew, she said finally, wringing her hands. He's been skipping school. Hanging around the wrong crowd. I thought you could talk to him. Part of me wanted to laugh at the irony. She'd thrown me out without a conversation, but now I was supposed to be the one to fix things. But when I saw the worry in her eyes, I realized something. Whatever had happened in the months since I left, she was losing control of her household. And I wasn't sure if stepping back in was going to help, or destroy what little piece I'd built. Mom led me down the hallway to Matthew's room, her voice dropping low. He's been shutting me out. Maybe he'll listen to you. The door was half closed, music thumping softly from a Bluetooth speaker. I knocked twice before pushing it open. He was sprawled on his bed, hoodie pulled over his head, scrolling on his phone. When he saw me, his eyes widened. Hey, Matt, I said, leaning against the doorframe. Mind if I come in? He sat up quickly and nodded. I closed the door behind me and took a seat in the desk chair. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We just looked at each other like we were both making sure this was real. I didn't think you'd come back here, he said finally. I didn't either, I admitted. But Mom says you've been skipping school. He rolled his eyes. She's exaggerating. I've missed a few days. It's complicated. Complicated how? He hesitated, then sighed. Rick. I can't stand being around him. And Sarah's always stressed. Sometimes I just leave. Go hang out with my friends instead of sitting in that house. I could hear the frustration in his voice, and it wasn't just teenage rebellion, it was the same suffocating feeling I'd had when I still lived there. I get it, I said quietly. But you've got to be careful. Skipping school isn't going to make things better, it's just going to give Mom more reasons to come down on you. He shrugged. She already does. What's the difference? I leaned forward. The difference is, I'm here now. You can call me if things get bad. I'm not going to disappear again, Matt. His expression softened, and for the first time that night, he smiled. Okay. I'll try. But, don't tell Mom everything I said. I promised I wouldn't. As I left his room, I could feel Mom's eyes on me from the hallway, like she was trying to read the conversation from my face. And that's when I knew, this wasn't just about Matthew skipping school. She had another reason for pulling me back in. After I left Matthew's room, Mom was waiting in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed. "Well," she asked. "He's frustrated," I said carefully. "He's not just ditching for no reason." She huffed. "Frustrated or not, he needs to get his act together. And I thought maybe you could help with more than just a pep talk." Something in her tone made me pause. "What do you mean, more?" She looked away for a second, fiddling with the edge of a dish towel. "I mean, I could use some help around here. Bills are tight. Rick's between jobs again. If you moved back in." I cut her off before she could finish. "No. I'm not moving back." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't be dramatic. It's not like before. You'd have your own space. And you could keep an eye on Matthew. He listens to you." I stared at her, stunned at how quickly this had shifted from concern for Matthew to, well, what felt like convenience. "You kicked me out, Mom. You didn't just suggest I leave. You made me pack my life into garbage bags and drive away." She sighed, like I was the unreasonable one. "That was then. Things are different now." "No," I said firmly. "They're not. You still want to control everything, and I'm not putting myself back in that situation." Her face hardened. "Fine. If you won't help, then don't complain when your brother goes off the rails." That last line hit like a gut punch, not because it was true, but because it was exactly the kind of guilt she'd always used to keep me in line. I grabbed my coat and left without another word. I didn't even look back when she called after me. By the time I got home, I'd made up my mind. If I was going to help Matthew or Sarah, it wasn't going to be through Mom. 2 days after that conversation with Mom, I texted Sarah from the burner number, "We need to meet soon." She agreed without hesitation. We met in the same coffee shop as before, but this time, there was no awkward catching up, we got straight to it. "I'm done waiting for things to magically get better," I told her. "If you and Matthew want out, we need a plan. One mom can't sabotage." She glanced around, lowering her voice. "I've been saving money. Not much, but enough for a deposit on a small place. I just didn't know how to get Matt out without Mom freaking out." "That's where I come in," I said. "If we can get him to stay with me under the excuse of helping him focus on school, maybe she'll let it slide at first. Once he's with me, we figure out the rest." Sarah hesitated. "She's not going to like that." "She's not going to like anything we do," I said bluntly. "But we can't keep letting her run your lives." Over the next few weeks, we started laying the groundwork. I got Matthew a prepaid phone so he could talk to me without Mom or Rick snooping. Sarah quietly gathered his important documents, birth certificate, school records, anything we might need if things escalated. The turning point came in early March, when Matthew called me in the middle of the night, his voice shaking. He'd had a blowout argument with Rick, and Mom had taken Rick's side. "I can't stay here," he said. "I'll do whatever you want, just get me out." By the next afternoon, he was sitting on my couch, backpack at his feet. Mom knew he was with me, but she didn't put up much of a fight, probably thinking it was temporary. It wasn't. Helping Matthew settle in, watching him slowly relax, reminded me why I'd fought so hard to build my own life. I couldn't change Mom. But I could make sure my brother and sister had a safe way out when they were ready. And for the first time in a year, I felt like I was finally steering my own story, without letting her hands anywhere near the wheel.